This is Insight. Phone lines are open. Dial 384-2191.
It is the second Friday of the month here of April this time around, and we have an opportunity on the second Friday of the month to talk with members of the Marshfield PD. We used to talk to the chief, and we're going to do that again. By golly, we have a chief. Good morning, Jody Gurink.
Good morning.
Welcome to the office and welcome to the radio here. We'll be talking to you about once a month, I see.
That's the plan.
All right. So tell me about your background. Did you see this coming? I mean, obviously you applied for the job, but did you have a hint that maybe they would do this?
Well, no, not really. I didn't know that I wanted to do this for a while. I got into law enforcement just to be a cop. That's what I wanted to do and serve the community. And as I progressed in my career and was able to take some training and learn, and when promotions came up, I was ready. And this is no different. It's an opportunity that came up I didn't see coming that I put in for, and I was lucky enough to get it.
So is that unusual? I mean, you were what was your title before?
Lieutenant.
Yeah, to go that leap? Is that, I mean, is the department structured that way? That would be a...
We restructured back in 2017, and we added the assistant chief in between lieutenants and chief. The old structure went from lieutenant to the next step up would have been chief. So that was a natural progression, but it's a little bit uncommon, I guess, but it all works out with timing.
Is there, I mean, what's the hierarchy? How does the duties break down? I mean, when there's an assistant now, so that would be what, when you take vacation, or that there's someone who's in charge?
If something were to happen to me, then Pat would, obviously he was able to take the ball and run with it. He's been running with it for almost 2 years now. Also, he would be supervising our lieutenants and a couple other staff. I would be taking care of the day-to-day operations as far as getting money here and making sure that our direction is going correctly, and morale and all the other things that encompass the department.
So it's more of a desk job now?
Very much a desk job. But I can drive a desk.
With the best of them, right?
That's right.
So the structure is chief, assistant, and then lieutenants.
We have 5 lieutenants.
This is my question. How many do you have?
Yep, there's 5. There's 1 for each patrol shift, and then 1 in our detective bureau. And then on the patrol side, underneath the lieutenants, is a lead officer. So,
and that's for per shift?
Yep, each patrol shift has a lead officer.
And they usually are the ones who will make, I mean, decisions have to be made sometimes snap, but other ones are, what do I do about this now? I've taken somebody in. How does the information flow go?
Well, I guess depending on the situation, obviously, and on the patrol level, the lieutenant is going to be running the overall shift. When he's not there, the lead officer would step up and do that. The lead officer is a union position. The lieutenant's a non-union position. So any discipline or any of that sort of thing that would happen, and those sorts of actions that would happen would be on the lieutenant level. But in the absence of the lieutenant, the lead officer would bring the issues forward to the lieutenant and to be taken care of later on. Approving off time and those sorts of things, the lead officer is able to do that, and to run the shift, they can do the same duties as the lieutenant.
Talking with Jody Gurink, the new chief of police for Marshfield. I say that, although you've probably been, you've been in the department for how long?
It'll be 24 years in July, so I'm just learning my way around town.
Yeah, I tell you, with the people who have come here, the dead-end streets are the ones that get you.
That's right.
They put the parkway through, that chopped up a lot.
Yeah, you've got to pay attention to the addresses, because that 100 blocks can end quickly and start up somewhere else.
I don't know. It's like Apple. How many of those are there?
Yeah, there's quite a few. Apple, Blodgett, another one. And
you've got to know which part of it to get to.
That's true.
If you're going to get there in a hurry. Mm-hmm. So those kind of things. So you know your way around the building anyway, over there, and around the department. So this idea here, I mean, how do you feel about repairing the, I don't know what morale is, but the eyes in the eyes of the community?
Yeah, we hear this a lot, and we went through a difficult time. There's no doubt, but our officers are ready to move forward. They're great. They've been through the worst of this, and they want to move forward. And we're going to focus our attention not on the past, but on bringing our services to the community where it belongs. And that's what I want to do moving forward. There's no more dwelling on what we've been through. We'll be better for it, and we're going to move forward.
There have been a few hiccups in the history of this department.
There have.
This is just the latest one.
Yes.
I will come right at you here and say that the idea of promoting from within seems like perpetuating a problem here as opposed to going from outside. Now, I know that the Police and Fire Commission would take me to task on that. How do you answer questions like that?
You know, honestly, Jeff, thank you for bringing it up, because, you know, this is something that these are the conversations that we need to have. And police departments across the United States are filled with people. People make mistakes, and sometimes people aren't a good fit for a community or a department. Unfortunately, we had that. We had a person that wasn't a good fit for our community. We didn't know it until we found out. And now
Some people don't believe that.
Well, I understand that, but that's my opinion. So my opinion is that I think that we need to, it's my job to take us forward from here. We are not the actions of one person. And our department is a good department, and we're good people. And it's time that we show everybody about that.
Well, it's like everybody's good for a while, and then something happens again, it seems like, over a long period. And I know that's not your situation under your leadership here. It may be just as smooth as can be, but it seems like there's those hiccups along the way.
Yeah, and it's a fair question. You know, we represent, in law enforcement, we represent not only our community, but we represent our profession. And we have to own those things and recognize that people do have those opinions. And it's on to us to show the folks that we're not them.
According to and I don't want to dwell on this too long because, as you said, it is the past, but we're going to get it out and get it over with, and then we can put it in the rearview mirror here. But there are people who say that the complaints that were happening within the department were taken up, and you heard the testimony, nobody did anything about it. So when you come back to the office, everybody's shrugging their shoulders and going, well, I guess they turned their head on this one, so we will too. Well,
and unfortunately, I don't know a lot of those situations because my rank at that time was not privileged to much of that information. But I can tell you that it has been looked into. Our department has been through more scrutiny than probably any other. Well, certainly any other in the city, but maybe most in the region. And when we did a deep dive, the city did a deep dive into our department and found that we were doing things appropriately, at least with the knowledge that we had. It's unfortunate if there were things that, if there was a victim that moved up the chain of ladder and stalled out. It's unfortunate, and all I can say is that I'm going to make sure that we do the best to never make that happen, or never let that happen.
The safest time is after the crime, isn't it?
It is.
Because everybody then is alert to the whole situation.
Right. I can say that the Police and Fire Commission have reached out to me, and they've encouraged any lines of communication, and I've encouraged them that if something comes around me to them, that they take action on it. And I think that we are moving forward, and we're making safeguards on ourselves to ensure that our employees are safe.
Talking with the new Marshfield Police Chief Jody Goering here for the first time on this second Friday of the month, as he will continue the tradition of availing himself to you, because you can call us 384-2192, 384-2192. My position is not to beat him up, but it is to ask the questions that everybody out there doesn't have or time or take the time to ask here. That as I often say on this program, everybody's on a bar stool. They can say anything they want, but you get a microphone or a telephone in their hand and they're responsible for what you say, then everybody quiets up.
And I truly do appreciate the opportunity to air these things. If we don't have these lines of communication and these hard conversations, we're going to stay right where we were, and that's not where I want to be.
So this point here now, you're moving forward, same people that you've been around you for the most part here. Mm-hmm. The turnover situation in law enforcement is a problem. Not so much with your department or any department in particular. There's retirements. That's been, it seemed like, the most obvious thing. But the pipeline coming up, finding people. I mean, there's been people in this chair that have talked to me about the same thing. You know, I used to have 100 applicants, now I got 25, or whatever the case may be.
Exactly.
So what are we going to do about that situation?
We are in a hiring crisis. There's no doubt about it, and it's across law enforcement, and as you said, across many industries. And I'm not smart enough to know the reasons behind that. What we're doing, well, first of all, we are going to be hiring. We'll be having applications out very shortly, so come on, join our team, get an application in if you're interested. But we've reached out to, we have WileyNet, which is it's a state website where we can advertise openings, and so we do use WileyNet, which reaches out to a lot of people who have gone through recruit school or been exposed to the college system, working towards law enforcement, to where they can access departments who are looking for work. We do a couple other websites to reach out to folks. Handshake is one. I have a recruiting team that we're trying to get up off the ground, where we can have some recruiting videos we can take to technical colleges, and we're really trying to be proactive in reaching out to people, which is something that we didn't have to do in the past, but we do now. It's a struggle. It really is a struggle.
Are we going to back off on the TikTok videos a little bit?
I'm not going to do them. I got a face for radio, and maybe not even that.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's fun, and it's good for morale, and other departments play, so you guys want to get in on it too. I get that. But at this point in time, it just seems like you're under a microscope here right now.
And you know, we do want to build those relationships with the community, and I don't want to overlook that, but I also want to take opportunities like this to make sure that we're getting our messaging across as well, and that message is that we need to be here for our community, and we need to provide a service to them, and to focus our attention on their needs. And so the TikTok videos, I think, are a good tool if we use them in that direction.
Talking with new Marshfield Police Chief Jody Goering for the first program here on WDLB's Insight program, the second Friday of the month. And just getting familiar with him. If you want to, you can too. 384-2192. 384-2192. There's some tough questions that have to be gotten through first of all here as we move forward, so that we can move forward and be confident that we're moving forward, I guess, even for that matter. But I will give you and the department props in that there have been times over the past few years when you have been recognized in the way that you've handled some situations. There have been some shootings of suspects across the country. There have been the Floyd thing. It's an anomaly, I understand, but it brings the profession into a microscope. And those kind of things, as far as your department is concerned, the beanbags, things like that. I mean, there was actually a video that made it to national television. I think Dan Abrams did a program at that time, which has since been scuttled for whatever reason. But your body cam video made it onto the national program as a way to handle this without having somebody fatally wounded. And so I have to give you props for the way that you have handled some things in the past and made our department and our city proud.
Thank you. And honestly, we do pride ourselves on training. We put a lot of money into each officer for training, more than most departments do, and that pays off in situations like that. I have to point out, though, there is an element of luck there too. We can't control every situation or pretend that we can. In the times that we were able to use less lethal, we did also have lethal coverage in case we needed to deploy that. Luckily that we were able to have the time and the training in order to use less lethal in situations where it was very beneficial to us and to our community, and to get the help that those folks that we were dealing with, that they needed, and we were able to provide that for them too. It's a terrible thing to think about having to use lethal force. I hope we never have to do it. And if we can solve issues, incidences with less lethal, and we can do it safely to our citizens and our officers, man, we need to do that. It's
happened in the county and around central Wisconsin recently. I mean, within the past year.
No community is immune to it anymore. It could happen anywhere. now.
And that's a tough part of the job.
It
I mean,
is.
for your families and everything, when you go to work that day, are you coming home?
Right.
And that sounds dramatic, and it sounds like your TV stuff, but it's real.
reality.
Situations like the one most recently here where you waited somebody out on Lincoln, for instance. That was a 24-hour wait.
Yeah, we've had several barricaded subjects recently, and I have to give credit to our tactical team and our tactical commanders and our road guys. They've been extremely patient and have operated in a way that's maybe not the most heroic in some people's eyes, but it is the correct way to do things and to become to be more peaceful in our conclusions to these. We have to be patient, and if we don't need to go in, we're not going to go in, as long as it can be done safely.
As we're talking here today, we're coming to you on video as well on MFLD TV, on video with the new police chief, Jody Gurink, here this morning. And I always have to tell people, I said, you're watching us in the future, and so things may have changed and resolved themselves about issues that we're talking about. But just the other day, there was an issue here where there was a person who did not want to cooperate in a situation at the Walmart parking lot. And that was evidently what? He was being looked at as a suspect at the time of something, or investigated?
We had some information or actually probable cause to believe that he was involved in some child pornography. And we were able to locate him there. And he had decided to barricade himself in a vehicle and a semi-truck and not come out. And so we were able to contain him and ultimately take him into custody without much incident.
You have a unique, well, I don't know how unique it is, a situation here where you have a lot of jurisdictions. At that time, it looked pretty impressive when everybody showed up.
Our neighboring agencies are phenomenal with helping, and we travel out to, we work outside of the city too at times. One thing about Marshfield that some people don't realize is that actually we're an island community. We don't have the jurisdictions like, say, up by Wausau, where you have Wausau, Everest Metro, Rothschild, a lot of agencies in a short distance for mutual aid. Ours is basically Wood County and Marathon County. Marathon County is a huge county. To cover that on their own, they've got their hands full. Wood County has always been awesome with helping us with mutual aid. They were there about the same time as our officers. And then we were able to contain enough to get more help over to us. We do that on situations like this quite frequently, and our working relationships with our neighbors is phenomenal. And I want to continue that trajectory for sure.
Because of where it happened, across the street, I say, then he went to Wausau, Marathon County Jail.
Yep. So with Marshfield being in two different counties, depending on where we make the arrest or where the offense happens, is what courts that they end up in. So we have to travel either way, either to Rapids or to Marathon County, depending on where the jurisdiction lies.
Yeah, it's a bad spot. You got to, what, 20 miles one way and 40 the other?
It's quite a travel, but we do have some help sometimes in those areas. Like yesterday, Marathon County stepped up and they came down and helped us with the transport even, and that saves us 2 hours of time while people are trying to catch up with reports and to go through all the paperwork that's necessary in these situations too. So that mutual aid is awesome, and we need to really build those relationships and keep them.
Not to jeopardize the case or anything, but how was it that the alert was put out? Were you attempting to take him at his truck at the time, and then he just refused, or
that? I don't have all the details as to what got us up there, but I know that our detectives had gotten information that he was located there, and then we went to take him into custody. And
then the fun starts.
Yeah.
From that point on here, so everybody, send the cavalry, as they say.
Yeah, it's always better, and this is something that I want people to understand too. Is we often get questions about, why do you have so many officers for one incident? Or it's a lot easier to send officers away from an incident than it is to get them there. So we may respond heavy in the beginning to make sure that we can contain the situation, and then as the needs go down, we can send officers away from the situation. So it's a tactic that we've used that's worked for us for a long time, and it's one that is probably best for law enforcement to have you in the beginning and then send people away.
I'll ask you the same questions I asked predecessors. On an actual stop, why two all the time? I mean, when I see somebody pulled over, there's always a second.
Yeah, kind of the same principle. Not always, but we try to do that. And there's no such thing as a routine traffic stop. We have no idea who's inside of the car, and so it's best to have a couple show up, and then if everything feels like it's going good, we can send one away. And it's the same principle.
Well, if you have two in one spot, doesn't that leave a hole somewhere?
Not necessarily. We do have designated areas in the city, but we can get from one side of the city to the other in about 3 to 4 minutes if we run red lights and siren. So we don't make our officers stay in designated areas. In a city that would have been like with ours, where the railroad tracks, we have accesses to go around the tracks if a train's coming through. If we had not those accesses, then we would keep a north and south car. But the way that it is now, we can have our officers take calls in the area that they're designated to, but patrol the whole city.
So it takes a few minutes for them to get from one spot to another, though.
It could.
As a backup, I mean, just cruise up, everything okay, and then head out. Is that the general consensus in the way you handle it with your department?
Yep, that's the general, and the theory behind it is that the rest of the officers are still roaming around the city and can respond in other places too.
Talking with Marshfield Police Chief Jody Gurink this first time here on the Insight program. We talk with him the second Friday of the month. If you're watching us on the video, it is on the second Friday in the month of April that we're talking with him. First time around here, got an opportunity to talk with, I guess we call the new chief here and the Insight program. You can too, 384-2192, 384-2192 on WDLB's Insight. And WDLB's Insight program, the second Friday in the month of April. You know that if you're listening live here, but you may be watching us on MFLD TV. We'd like to welcome our cameraman, David Ballerstein, to the community as well here, or the community TV, I guess we'd call it. Veteran, have you been around this business for a while?
About 25 years.
Oh, another one. Another quarter century here in it, right? So that's good. We are being seen on your cable channels. MFLD TV is on 980, 990, 991. You can watch us there, or they've got their streaming platforms too on YouTube and through the city's website. They have their setup there, which you can watch previous programs, and I urge you to do that because you can watch all the commission meetings. There's a yawner for you, you know. every one of the. Now it's your job to go and sit.
Yeah, we try to make those as exciting as we can, but there's business to be had.
Well, you know, just set off a couple rounds. You'll get some interest.
I don't want to do that.
This is boring.
Yeah.
That's to get some attention. Marshfield PD chief.
I don't want that.
Accidentally, you know, sends off a round or something. That's part of the administrative job you've got now, though. You know what it is.
Yep. Yeah, it is. And the it's the way that the system is made up, and the Police and Fire Commission have control over our budgets and policies, and it's my job to make sure that they're informed on those and that the public's informed. So those meetings are the best way to do that.
Do you intend to keep up the how would I say the things that you've been doing over the years to ingratiate yourself to the public, the brat fries, the coffee, and
I want to make sure we have some community outreach programs like that. I think that those are probably the best way to have just a conversation with us and with the community.
Well, you could have it right here, but here we sit. Nobody.
Not enough room.
Hello, phone's not ringing.
Yeah, no kidding.
Give us a call, 384-2192. You can welcome him or tell us what you think about, as we talked about earlier in the program here, the bumps that have been had in the history of the department. And this is just another one for the annals, I guess.
Yeah, and, you know, if, I'm open to suggestions if we can service your neighborhood better, or if you find things that we can maybe help you guys with our service, let us know.
Well, Keffer was around to put up all those little speed zones there for us. Those
was-
are things that are still available, though.
Absolutely, we put up speed signs, and Lieutenant Keffer rather was headed up that project and did a really good job with it. He has handed that down to some other folks in our department that are taking the reins, and we're willing to put those up, get some requests into us.
And that's a point that you will, when people call and they say, will you watch this area? I have a problem over here. People are doing this. You're not going to descend on the area, but on the other hand, it will be in their shift.
Yep.
Manual.
We have we keep lists. It's called a problem-oriented patrol. We keep lists of areas that are having issues and what those issues are, and we'll make sure that the officers that are assigned those calls, or assigned those areas rather, will keep an eye on those incidences when they're patrolling through. And like I said before, where we don't make our officers stay in their areas. However, if we have a problem-oriented patrol issue, that's one of the things that they would need to check on periodically throughout their shift.
It could be anything from kids in the area and people are not slowing down. Or...
We've had all the whole array. We've had everything from stray dogs to speed to suspicious vehicles. Anything that just seems out of the ordinary. And in the older days, we may have had a neighborhood watch program where they would.
Does that no
call.
longer exist?
We still offer it. Oftentimes, if there's a rash of things that happen in an area, then it sparks up again. But then once those problems subside, then the involvement in those programs dwindle.
What do you mean by involvement? I mean, what is that neighborhood watch?
If we have
meetings and.
Yeah, it's the community. It can be a variety of things. A lot of times it could be neighbors just communicating together. We don't want them. We don't want people going out to patrol or those sorts of things. They certainly can, but what we'd like to have is just that communication between the neighbors, and then also the willingness to call us if they see issues happening. And it's really just building that community involvement with each other, actually talking to their neighbors and working on the problems in their area. Where we see it is if we have, for instance, maybe we have a whole bunch of people breaking into vehicles, and we have a lot of vehicle thefts, or thefts from vehicles. Well, neighbors will often say, well, the whole neighborhood's getting hit. Let's have a neighborhood watch program to where we can keep an eye on, and however they decide to do that, to call us to get us to respond to the problem. We might make an arrest, or maybe they move on, and those problems go down, and then that involvement also tends to go down with that.
Well, isn't that kind of like the horse is gone already when you're putting together? Because and correct me if I'm wrong, but my assessment has been that a lot of these rashes have been from people coming in and doing things. There may be some vandalism and stuff like that.
It really runs. I mean, it runs the gamut. There's been traveling. There's been local. Some of them are just kids getting into trouble. It runs the gamut.
So when the area, I guess, like we said before, the safest place is the one that just got hit, because now everybody's really patrolling hard in that area.
Let's not let that out. So.
Too late. I figured it out.
Yeah.
I got the key here. Sorry. Talking with Jody Goering, the police chief of Marshfield now, and your opportunity as well, 384-2192, 384-2192. Recently here, just the other day, the armored vehicle, when that was purchased, that was kind of people were going, do we really need that? And is that not an overkill with, well, it's just going to be in parades and showing off your flexing your muscles and stuff like that. And you have put it out there because it's taxpayer funded. Take a look.
Well, yeah, that actually was bought through our 1033 program, which didn't cost the city anything. The paint job was, I believe we covered half of the paint job, and the other half was donated, if I remember correctly at the time. The difference in our opinions of that vehicle is that some see it as militaristic and maybe brute force. It actually is designed to save lives. We are able to approach hostile areas a lot closer. We've got attachments for the vehicle to breach into areas that we wouldn't be able to before. We could stop, for instance, the semi yesterday, if that would have went mobile, Now we have 80,000 pounds of missile going around, the city, which we've had in the past. There are apparatuses that we can put on that vehicle to stop that from happening before it does. And so there's so many uses that we can do with that vehicle that keeps officers and citizens safe. That without it would be a detriment to our community.
In the situation the other day, as you're watching us on video, this is in early April, and we're talking about the situation at the Walmart parking lot, child pornography charges. Mm-hmm. Until I started reading news, I had no idea that this national child endangerment, or between that trafficking and the pornography charges, it's almost daily that you guys are tracking somebody or get the idea that somebody, online you're following them or you're actually following them.
In our department, Detective Jason Parks heads up those investigations, and he's probably the best in the state. The guy's phenomenal at these types of crimes. And bless him, because these were things that most likely were happening forever. There was always this sort of
I think the technology has allowed people to trade images a lot easier than
the images, but I mean, it all kind of, in my mind, it all leads towards the endangerment of children, because if there's a market for this, then that puts the children in danger. So whether it's child pornography or trafficking, to me, it's all the same and should be treated as to the fullest extent of the law. In those situations are also very dangerous for law enforcement, because when we charge them federally, what they're charged with is what they get. There's not getting out early, and people are starting to realize that, and so there's more of a motivation for them to resist when we do go make the arrest for those crimes as well. So they're very dangerous.
They are constant. It seems like, are you in your department posing as somebody, or when does that come into? I hear those scenarios quite often where a law enforcement person is posing as someone. Do you have time to do that here? Or? There
are tactics that we can do. We have a group that there's regional groups that can do those sorts of things. And I'm not as versed in those tactics as much as with others. It's my understanding, though, that we may have an officer that is in, I don't know, a different city, say Eau Claire or La Crosse, and they may be communicating with people in Marshfield, and then they would communicate with us, because oftentimes they'll travel out of their own home area to do these sorts of crimes or meetups.
How much of this human trafficking that we've come to, I mean, I know you guys have been to seminars. They've held seminars for the public to wise up to this situation. What's our status on that? It's an underground. They could be right in front of you.
They could, and so it's so difficult to put to answer that question. The answer is we don't know. We know that it exists. We know that it's prevalent. We know that it's popular. And we just don't know where it is right now. And so, those are investigations that when we do get information, we need to be aggressive on those right away.
It sounds, because it's been brought to the forefront, like there's more of it. But as you just stated here, I think this is another one of those things that's always been going on.
I'm certainly no expert in it, but I mean, it would be reasonable to think that we're just becoming more aware of it happening.
Years ago, and I said this before about domestic abuse, I said that, hey, that's Joe's family. That's his business, I mean, you could hear the hollering and the screaming going on in there, but that was his business.
Right.
It's not that way anymore.
No, and thank God.
And so there's a lot of things like that now where, this little girl is with this guy, and years ago, we were like, well, he must be the guardian or whatever. People just didn't think much of stuff like that. Right. Now everybody's suspicious. That's the downside, is that we have that Homeland Security mentality. See something, say something. But now everybody is guilty until proven innocent, it seems like, in this society.
There's a definite feeling with that. And I guess, in my opinion, it's better I'd rather investigate 100 incidences that turn out to be completely benign than to miss one that's targeting a child. So
it's tough, and human trafficking doesn't have to be kids.
No, there's all sorts of it out there, you know.
A lot of what you do, and I've talked to predecessors about this too, is that it seems like at your level, there's traffic and domestic. And that takes up 90% of what you do. The rest of it is, paperwork.
Yeah, there's a number of drug cases that we deal with, and a lot of times those come through traffic stops that we're able to build those cases. And our community is not immune. Unfortunately, we have everything that big cities do. You know, I just finished up with some training at the National Academy where we had a whole bunch of different leaders from departments around the world. And when you talk with them, the problems that they're having in their communities and in their departments are the same that we have here. It's maybe a different scale. They may have more of it, but it's the same problems. And law enforcement is law enforcement.
I don't like to think of that, but oftentimes I'll say here too that it's not just somewhere else. I mean, we like to think that, oh, that's Milwaukee.
No.
You know, they're the area. Madison has that kind of stuff. We don't have that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it's not that way anymore. And maybe it never was. We have the same problems here that they have in any other city.
There's drug arrests like never before because there's opioid problems like never before. Are we getting a handle on the prescription stuff a little bit?
Well,
or?
It seems like the prescription stuff it has been better, and the even opiates have been a little bit better. We've been having a lot of meth, and I've been told at one time that if you have a heroin problem and then you start to see more meth, that means you're getting ahead of the heroin problem. I don't know why that works, but that's what it is. But fentanyl is the opiate right now that we're most worried about, and it's being mixed with other drugs. It's extremely potent and deadly.
Where are they cranking this stuff out? I mean, a lot of it, through my years, has been people would cook it up. You know, I mean, when they were making crank, as we used to call it, you know, it was on somebody's stove. You know, some guys from the biker group would make some money
Right.
by cooking it up on their stove, and then we took away all the anhydrous ammonia. Then we took the stuff off of the shelves, ephedrine and all that was being used,
Right.
and the recipe changed, a little bit, and now they're doing this, and meth was like the modern day moonshine. They were cooking it up out in the woods or mobile units. You don't see that as much anymore.
Yeah, well, where there's a will, there's a way, and if there's a market, they'll find a way, whether it's local cooks or bringing it in through cartel. Who knows? If there's a market for it, there's going to be a way.
But if that fentanyl is as what you say it is, geez, just handling that stuff. I mean, you're playing with
dangerous.
nitroglycerin here. There was a time when they used to say in your department there are others that put rubber gloves on. You never know what you're touching in a car. And it'll go through your skin.
Yeah.
It's to knock an elephant down.
Yeah, and fentanyl is definitely very, very potent and dangerous.
So that kind of stuff, when you're making it, imagine, I don't know, Breaking Bad here is a little dramatic, but I mean, that's got to be being done. They talk about China, but how do they get it here?
Yeah, I think that there's a number of ways that they get it here, and we just have to work up the chain.
Are you in a network of people? Obviously, you talk to other departments and things like that, but of comings and goings here that may be coming through you? I mean, because you have what I consider to be a fair share of arrests for a city this size. You get the dog out there, and somebody's on the.
Yeah, we have drug task force that we work with some regional teams to combat our drug problems, and then also there's several drug task force in the state, and we may team up with other ones because like I said, we're in two different counties, and those are two different task force. So we might work with either of those task force to combat issues that we're all having in our communities because it's all linked. They don't seem to know the boundaries, so they can go anywhere.
In these I call it post-COVID, it's really not, but are you getting to do more meetings now with these task force people? Yes,
we were able to, and some of those meetings didn't stop because there's a bigger safety risk or more immediate safety risk to combat some of these drug problems than with the COVID at that time, and so we were able to still do our jobs. As police officers, so it just fell under their line of duty. But with other meetings, such as our community involvement and having some ride-alongs with internships and all of those things, we're able to start ramping those back up until inevitably that we're going to have another outbreak, I would imagine, and then we'll have to clamp things back down again. We're just going to have to ebb and flow with this until we can probably better understand it or better understand where we are with it.
But keeping in touch, so to speak, is a thing that we have to consider. Let's go to the phone. Good morning. You're on the Insight program.
Yes, good morning. Say hats off to law enforcement. How your job has changed over the years. I guess all our jobs have changed, but yours is it's unbelievable, and hats off to you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for what you do. I had an incident here happen to me on November 5th. I had horses for some 20 years, and anyway, worked with a farrier and got to know him quite well, or I thought, and for 4 years, come every 4 months and trim my horses and so on. And November 5th, he said he would take them to his place and work with them because they weren't a true team. And so, yeah, I didn't need him back till sleigh rides, so about 6 weeks. He was going to just work with them and so on. And, they never did go there. He sold them the same day. It's unbelievable. But, someone that...
were you able to report that and get some people investigating it? Good.
Yes,
Good.
Yes, and I'm in Marathon County.
Okay.
And it's gone nowhere.
No.
I'm an old man. This guy's half my age, and he found where they went. I mean, they didn't even go to his place. He took them, sold them that day, and sold them to another guy. And actually, that's the guy I bought them from. And of course, I didn't find this out till weeks later because I just assumed they went to his place to be worked with. And so they were. I mean, looking back now, they were obviously in cahoots. He bought them for $4,000, and they were at least $6,000 for the team with their leather and all, And I mean, the guy knew I wouldn't sell them. I mean, this is what I do for my retirement: is enjoy the sleigh rides and so on, and meeting people. And it's been a nice little gig. But boy, I tell you what, this is really throwing a curveball in it.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking.
And of course, I named them after my sisters because my sisters claimed they had to do all the work when I was young, so we named them after them. So anyway, there's a connection there, and I wanted those horses back. I mean, I never wanted them sold. I wanted them back.
Well, yeah, you deserve them.
Well, if I'm going to sell them, I'll sell them. I'm not going to give them to somebody to sell them,
Right.
I mean, it's just ridiculous. But anyway, I go out there, and the guy said, well, yeah, I knew those were your horses. I knew they were your horses, I said, well, why wouldn't you say something? But he bought them cheap from this guy that took them.
Sure.
Bought them cheap. And, of course, I wanted them back, whatever. And so then it was more than twice what he paid. He wanted me to pay him.
Oh, no.
So I said, well, you find out what people are really like, I guess. So I wanted them back. So I bought them.
Isn't that a stolen property issue, though? I mean, wouldn't you be able to?
Yeah,
I've reached out. I've begged people. This is November 5th, 5th when it happened. And I've been reaching and begging people and pleading people to help me some way here. But I know you guys are busy. I know the deputy. I met a nice young man from Marathon County, Eric, 2210 badge number, and nice young guy. But he said he can't charge them.
Okay.
I said, really? I said, well, if I left the gas station, you'd give me a ticket. Yeah, well, that's different, I guess. He can't charge them, so he gives it to the DA.
Right.
And the DA, well, I guess, I know you guys are busy.
Yeah. Well, first of all, Marathon County is a phenomenal department, and I'm confident that there must be something that I don't understand. But whenever there's charges, we don't actually charge. All we can do is request that the DA charges out, because actually law enforcement doesn't have the authority to charge. The district attorney does. So
Okay.
what we do is prepare a report and give it to the district attorney, and then they have to make the determination if there's enough to go
Yeah.
through with charges.
Well, that's just
Yeah,
that's
what
just
I
it.
might
I've got-
suggest, we maybe call up to the district attorney's office and see if they can explain why they didn't decide to charge it. There might be an idea.
Yeah, I know. They found the guy that took him. He was in Nebraska now, so I suppose there's a cost to bring him back. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, well,
And he,
we could still, I would suggest you call the district attorney and see if they can maybe steer you into a direction where you could understand, or maybe there's some other information that they can get to close up the deal.
yeah. I mean, I've lost a lot of sleep with it. It's just been. And,
can
mean,
imagine.
he sold them, and of course he took the money. Now, they got a hold of him, and of course he said he was going to send me the money. Well, I mean, if you believe in that, you believe in Santa Claus, I guess. But if he was going to give me some money, he'd have done it long before. Of all days, he was going to send me the money on the 14th of Valentine's Day in February.
Yeah.
And I thought, yeah, right. I'm sure the deputy didn't believe him either. But we waited, and of course it didn't happen, and it still hasn't happened, and it's really weighed on me. I mean, I just, and we've, we're not perfect out here, but we've supported Marathon County, we've supported
Sure.
Wood County's Crime Stoppers. We know. I mean, I have two friends that have retired, are now my age and retired, and I mean the stories they have and what you guys go through, and I mean, yeah. hats off to you.
if the district attorney can't do anything, there may still be some civil action too. Law enforcement is just going to look at the criminal side, but maybe there's something there civilly, and the district attorney might hint to you that there might be something that seems to be more civil than it is criminal for some reason, and maybe
Yeah, I
that would
don't
be
know
something to look at too.
The reason, I mean, they were taken and sold that same day. I mean,
Yeah.
if they were, if they weren't sold the same day, but I mean, so that was all, those guys had that all made out. And,
Yeah, that really seems shady to me.
and the guy will do it again. It may not be horses, but it'll be
Right.
something else. And until he gets penalized, so anyway, I just want to share my story.
All right.
Thank you
for
very
listening.
much.
Thank you. And,
Yes.
Yeah. Take care.
Thanks. Okay,
Yep.
bye.
Yep. Yep.
Good morning. You're on the Inside program with the chief.
Yes, I have a comment. I feel the district attorney is the biggest flaw we have in our whole legal system. I think this is probably widely known. It's more or less something you can prove that one DA will not touch, a different DA would jump at. And there are all kinds of situations where this comes into play. This is very common. This is a huge thorn in our legal system. Probably the biggest one there is. I realize their workload is tremendous.
Mm-hmm.
They're not given the attention by the people above them, but it represents a hole that has not been breached to resolve this. They have too much say-so. It's what they say or nothing. Just one case, I mean, this girl reached for her cell phone on the floor and killed a pedestrian that was walking legally during the day.
Mm-hmm.
And she was not charged with distraction or anything. She was free to walk.
Mm-hmm.
In this very similar case, the individual was given 20 years, for example. I mean, the comparison is from here to the moon on issues. And the resolution of cases can be like this person is describing. I mean, this is what half the TV shows were about, and I think it's realistic because it's too much about human nature. There are too many variables in this position. Then this is a position, I'm not blaming the individual, although there are a lot of individuals that it seems would rather make a name for themselves than to get to justice. I think justice is sidestepped by a lot of these individuals because they don't want to eat any mistakes. They will not look the other way and admit to anything.
Is that elected or appointed position, DA?
The district attorneys are elected.
I thought so. Well, then that's the only way to
That's
change
where the
that.
power is, and it there's a lot of discretion in law. In our hands and in the district attorney's hands, there's a lot of discretion there. And you are dealing with people, and I know that can be frustrating. We are just people. But one person might look at a situation one way and interpret the law one way, and another person might interpret it a different way. And we really never know what the answer is till it goes through court and a jury decides what the answer is.
Well, like you said about a civil action.
Yep.
Now that's a good point. That's a very good point, and you see this coming into play more and more, which is some resolution to a bad deal on the legal side. You can look at it, and then in a civil side.
The burden
recourse.
The burden of proof is different on the civil side than it is on the criminal side, where we have to prove beyond reasonable doubt. And a lot of times in civil, it's more a preponderance of evidence. So it's a less of a burden of proof, and that can sometimes be helpful in cases like this.
Well, what about my thinking that it's a flaw? I mean, we don't have a perfect system. I'm trying to say that, but it's pretty darn good. I mean, there are always going to be problems, but I think this is one that is largely ignored. Because they are, let's look at their overworked. They don't have time to devote to a case that's a lot of times required. They're under these time constraints. Cases are backed up to no end. They're understaffed. Why isn't the upper echelons of the legal system giving this area more attention?
There's been a lot of talk with that in law enforcement circles too, where our district attorneys are phenomenal attorneys, but they don't make the money that you do in the defense realm. So
that was a big factor.
They're getting paid far less than what defense attorneys are doing, and their workload is to the moon. So these are dedicated people, and they're not, in my opinion, they're not compensated the way that they should be. The problem is when we raise taxes, we also we have issues there too. So
it continues. Is there anything that you could leave me with that would offer promise? I mean, there is promise when you say look towards a civil suit possibly as a recourse. But yet, for enhancement for the future, is this going to just be the status quo? That it gets worse instead of better?
Right. I hope not. I believe the Attorney General has a lot of say in compensation for our district attorneys. But I would reach out through your legislation and try to get compensation.
Sure, that's a good idea.
And start working
well, just like
those
this guy
angles.
with the horses, too. He might call his legal representative.
Yeah,
don't you think?
They might. The number of cases
I mean, not legal,
that
but
they have.
political representative.
Right. But with the number of cases, just as you said, the district attorneys have. These people are phenomenal attorneys, but they're just people, and you can only do so much.
Yes.
So that may be the answer.
All right. Thanks for the call. Here on today's Inside program, we're talking with the Marshfield Police Chief Jody Gurink on the second Friday of the month here. This is the April program. If you're listening, you know that, or you may be watching us in video. You can see the program at MFLD TV through the city's website, or you may be able to see it on their YouTube channel as well. Look forward to talking to you again.
Great. Thank you.
Jody Gurink, our newest police chief here in the city of Marshfield on today's Inside program. Glad to have you with us. I'm Jeff Cannon, your host.